Hello, my name is Kuba, and this is the Dev Team Project, a podcast exploring methods, approaches, and skills needed to build great engineering teams.
Let's do it.
So, welcome everyone to another and very weird recording and an episode of the Dev Team Project podcast. This time we're walking with Kevin, and he's like an speed chess player and a software engineer and a founder, and he was featured in CNN and New York Times and TechCrunch. And yeah, so let's just start with your background, Kevin.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks so much for having me. We're on the ground here at GitHub University in San Francisco, and it's a real pleasure to see a friendly face from the blockchain space. I'm Kevin Owocki. I'm a software engineer, and I'm the founder of Gitcoin, which is a place that you can get coins if you're a software engineer. And our whole mission is to grow and sustain open source software. And we've done about $2.5 million in the Ethereum space, growing and sustaining open source software, eventually hoping to get outside of just the Ethereum niche and support the broader open source ecosystem. That's kind of why we're on the ground here at GitHub Universe, trying to scope out what the fiat infrastructure looks like in the fiat community and start to talk to them about what it would look like to put some Gitcoin in their engineers' pockets. So that's what we're doing out here, and it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
And what have you been doing like before blockchain, before Gitcoin?
Yeah, so I've been a software engineer all my life, and computer science degree from Delaware in 2006. Go Blue Hens! I worked on web startups for most of my career, and every startup that I've worked on has been using open source software. So instead of rolling my own web server or database server, I'll just pull a web server off of GitHub and leverage that, which has been a real accelerant for working on a startup that goes to market quickly, and we're really standing on the shoulders of giants. And it was that career of the last 10 years or so of doing startups and relying on open source software that inspired me to start Gitcoin, so that we could start to give back to the software engineers that create our digital infrastructure, the digital equivalent of our roads and bridges that we all rely on.
And what Gitcoin is, and let me lead it with, it's not a cryptocurrency, right?
That's
probably
right.
People that like from out of like the cryptocurrency space, they will hear like something coin, they will say, another cryptocurrency.
That's right, yeah. So we were actually founded in 2017, but we never did an ICO. There is no native token. And the reason that we did that was we just wanted to focus on building a product that the community loved. And luckily, we're able to do that over the last 2 years. So there is no Gitcoin token. Instead, you can get Ether or any Ethereum-based token using the Gitcoin platform. So you can think of Gitcoin as a place that you can get coins if you're a software engineer. And we've got a couple different ways that you can do that. The one that we launched with is bounties. So basically, if you have a feature that you want built or documentation you want updated or a bug to fix, then you can place a Ether or any Ethereum-based token bounty on that issue, and when it gets turned around, you can pay that out to the maintainer. So we've done about $2.5 million worth of distributions to open source software. I think about a third of those have been using the bounty product. And we have another product that's called Gitcoin Grants. It's kind of like a crypto Patreon that distributes rewards to maintainers who are already doing great work. And that's
we're turning.
Oh, okay, let's turn this way. All right, let's do it.
Let's hold the camera one, because
should we do a lap around the water, or should we go back this way?
Will prefer walk this way, because there might be a wind there, and I'm not sure our mics are like windproof.
Yeah, all right.
And to make this easier for people that are like out of the blockchain space and are not familiar with it, when you've mentioned that you can use any other token, that also means that you can use tokens that represent dollar.
Right, exactly.
So token that's like pegged to dollar, or like these are like this kind of called stable currencies. So it's not only about this weird coins. You can actually, use dollars and use Gitcoin with that.
And I think that's a really powerful thing. DAI, which is a stable coin that one DAI is equal to $1, is the number 2 token used on the Gitcoin network, and it's quite a popular one. I think it's really incredible for people who don't have access to the Western financial system to be able to get access through cryptocurrency. I think it's something we take for granted in the States, that our financial system is relatively stable and we don't have to worry about the banks intercepting our payments. But if you're in Eastern Europe or in some places in Africa, that's actually a really big value add for a lot of our users. And so using stablecoins is a pretty popular use case on the platform.
So like if I'm like an engineer or like an engineering leader, I have a team, I have a project. So how I can actually use Gitcoin right now? What are the use cases out there?
Yeah, so we've got a self-service platform that you can go and you can just, any feature request or bug report that you have, you can go throw it into the Gitcoin system and instantly market it to thousands of software engineers across the world that are on our platform. If you're new to the paradigms of remote work and open source and paying for work in tokens, then please send us an email and we'll kind of take you through a little onboarding deck about ways to think about working within this new paradigm. And sometimes there's some new mindsets that are useful to adopt when you start working on Gitcoin. For example, one of the things that we're seeing a lot of people do is try before you buy hiring. So the basic idea there is that you're not using bounties just to fix bugs in your software. You're using it to go on first dates with a bunch of software engineers, and if you like it, then you can hire them to work full-time on your team. So
if I can spec something, if I can write a good specifications like for a feature or a part of the software, I can use Gitcoin to make it happen, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that one of the nice things that we do really well is that we target those bounties based off of skill set. And one of my motivations for starting this project going into it was to have really highly targeted matching for software engineers and the work that they could work on, as opposed to what I consider to be the status quo in the software development recruitment industry, which is just buying a $99 LinkedIn subscription and sending as many messages as you can, regardless of how targeted they are, which I think really erodes consumer confidence from the developer side of things. So targeting is a really big part of our platform, and we've got thousands of developers that do Python and Ruby and JavaScript. So it's a lucky thing to be able to target those bounties only at the specific populations that they should be targeted at.
Yeah, so call me like a dreamer or a fool, but for me that's like a dawn of the future of engineering management, where I see like the hybrid engineering teams, and are partially remote, partially distributed, partially like in a classic structure, but some part of the work is being distributed on like in a grant-based system. Is it like the close to the vision behind Gitcoin?
Yeah, I think so. We're trying to test out new paradigms in terms of how work can be done that are better than the old ones. And everyone in the blockchain space is really excited about DeFi and investments, but I think that from first principles, the Internet of Money can change anything that has to do with money use cases, and most people spend more time at their jobs than they do thinking about their investments and savings accounts. So if you want to get widespread crypto adoption, then starting with people's jobs, I think, is a really, really great place to start. My end goal is for all the software engineers out there, I'd love to create an opportunity for them to just work by and for the internet. So basically, if you're working on public goods, if you're working on open source, then you can still pay your mortgage through the work that you're doing, and we're trying to build the infrastructure to support that. That's the end game, at least.
Yeah, I have to ask, what is DeFi?
So DeFi stands for decentralized finance.
Okay.
It's sort of a way of doing investments that are held in a smart contract, as opposed to traditional investments would be held by a bank, which has custody of your funds and may reinvest them in order to get a profit or something like that.
That's important to kind of explain.
Is your audience, are you guys sort of familiar with blockchain or sort of around their peripheral?
Not all of us,
okay,
right? Not
got
all
it.
of us, so we kind of have to elify here a bit.
Okay.
Okay, so but the use case right now, like the niche you're optimizing for, is open source right now.
That's right. Yeah, software developers, open source software developers.
Mm-hmm. And why? Like, this is another question that probably a lot of people that are listening to it, like, are thinking, like, why use blockchain at all? Like, what's in it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a project called Bounty Source that uses credit card payments in order to pay people, and I think that that's good too. One of our sort of core feelings at Gitcoin is that we should skate to where the puck is going, and we see this really interesting niche developing in the crypto space where there's just too much money chasing not enough developers, whereas traditionally in open source there's been not a lot of money unless you've got the administrative weight of the Linux Foundation or Google or GitHub. There's not a lot of money available for open source software. So in the blockchain space, you have hundreds of billions of dollars of market cap that's chasing too few developers. And so all the money that used to go to some back office on Wall Street now goes to open source software in this new open financial system that's being built. And we just felt like the supply demand economics in the blockchain space were going to be more favorable to software engineers. But there's other tangible benefits. You can pay people across the world without having to get a bunch of approvals from your bank. You can pay people in your own native tokens, which is an interesting way of aligning your incentives with the project's incentives. So there's a lot that's sort of evolving rapidly there, and blockchain's a great place to this is a trope, but to live in the future and to build what's missing is sort of one of our development methodologies at Gitcoin.
Yeah, that sounds really great. For me, it's a lot about like building like truly distributed and truly remote teams when you can work like with anyone in the world, like without worrying about friction and probably legal agreements and all the things that makes this like really, really hard.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's sometimes a good thing with legal agreements that you can rely on. I'm 35 and I have a kid and a mortgage and stuff, and so if I didn't have an agreement with someone to pay my salary, then that would cause a lot of stability issues for me. But I do think that we're sort of reinventing a lot of these things from first principles in the blockchain space. Instead of using a 25-page Microsoft Word document for your employment contract, you can use a smart contract, and it's the very early days of this, so we're just starting to see the glimmers of it.
And for like commercial engineering teams, like in Bay Area, like what is between now and the moment that they will be able to use and like utilize Gitcoin? Like what obstacles are there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're all the standard crypto onboarding issues that you hear of. You have to install MetaMask, you have to get ETH, you have to understand to some extent what a private key is, how it secures your account, how to sign transactions. When you sign and send a transaction, sometimes the Ethereum network gets backed up because it's so popular, and so sometimes it'll take several hours for your transaction to clear, and then explaining the economics of gas is sort of a confusing user experience. So I guess the product right now is targeted at crypto early adopters, and so if you really have no interest in crypto and you just want the crypto to get out of the way so that you can use it in a traditional user experience that you're used to, like a credit card user experience, then you're going to have a bad time right now. But we do hope to eventually build a fiat, which is what us in crypto we call US dollar fiat dollars. In the next few years, we're going to be building a more fiat-friendly interface where you don't have to worry about private keys or what tokens you're doing. You can just use a credit card. So that'll be coming in the next year or so.
But if I really, really care and my project is relying on some open source software that's missing some feature or something like this, would this be like a wise idea to try the Gitcoin software?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're asking the founder of Gitcoin, so the answer is going to be yes, I think. But I mean, it just depends on what your alternatives are and what you're using it for. If you're, a lot of people will use Gitcoin because they don't have the time or the skills in order to fix an issue themselves. And then a big third issue, the reason why people will use Gitcoin is that they want to recruit a software engineer. In a world where digital products are kind of the gold, then we kind of think that we're selling pickaxes to the gold miners. We're selling access to software engineers. And so I think that working with a recruiter is way too expensive and way too error prone. And that's part of why we built Gitcoin. And so if you don't want to figure out private keys and MetaMask and all that kind of stuff, then I think that's kind of a silly blocker rationally from using Gitcoin, because there's 25,000 software engineers that we can market your project to, and no recruiter in the world can do that. And so it just really depends on what your goals are.
Yeah, that's an interesting and a super disruptive idea.
That's the hope. I mean, I like to think that we're in the middle of a few different mega trends. There's blockchain, there's open source software, there's remote work, there's the gig economy, and then there's automation of work, which is driving people away from blue collar jobs and into coding boot camps. And so you're seeing software engineer now in many states in the United States becoming one of the biggest jobs that people do. It's the number one job in a lot of states in the United States.
And Gitcoin is like a piece of this puzzle, or like an incentive mesh network that you can use to kind of tie it up together, right?
Yeah, that's the hope. And we're filming this in the heart of San Francisco in Silicon Valley, where the average engineer makes over 100K. And there's a lot of places in the world where you can get engineers that are just as good as the Valley engineers, but your money will go a lot longer way. So there's sort of like a geo arbitrage thing happening a little bit on Gitcoin as well.
Yeah, I think it's like a very relevant note to end on, right?
I think so.
In San Francisco.
Yeah, the belly of the beast, coming at you live from the belly of the beast out here in SF.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to this short episode. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks for having me. All right, that was fun.
How was it?
I don't think I've ever done anything like that before.